Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you joined us tonight to learn all about the power of the tower garden that Beth and I have been growing for um, close, more than 25 years between us. And we're going to tell you all about it. You don't need to be a gardener to be successful with that. And you're going to hear all about our stories tonight. So let's get started. So why a tower garden? Beth is gonna dive into this because it's never been a better time to get growing with a tower garden.
Why tower garden? Well, I started tower gardening 14 or so years ago, and I was not a gardener, more like a plant killer. And literally, I think I could stare at a plastic plant and it would die, but that's a story for another day. And I have been successfully, abundantly growing since the day I started, and I've made every single mistake. So just take that from where it's coming. When I started, it was very much a novelty. And I say it was a novelty because the idea of growing food was kind of cool and it was fun. And I live on 5 acres and, plenty of land, plenty of soil. I live in the Northeast. You can't grow year round outdoors. But I say novelty because food prices were less expensive. I live in between two organic farms. Food was much more accessible and it was much more affordable. We're living in a very different time now, whether it's for yourself or somebody living with food insecurity, food deserts. Food is very, very expensive, and with cost of living and cost of food going up, many people don't have the ability to just make more money, especially if you're a salaried person. And food goes, but broccoli goes from $3 a bunch for organic broccoli to $7 a bunch. That's significant, and likely income isn't going up in the same way. And if not for you, maybe on here, because we're a self-selected group, we're a group that's interested in this. Maybe for us, we have the ability to do that. And we've already found a way to offset cost and grow our own food. But there are many out there that do not have that. We're never going to have any more land. So utilizing space and growing up rather than out makes a whole lot of sense. Being able to grow year round, no matter what climate you live in, hot or cold, desert, winter, snows, whether you're, up in Canada and Connecticut or, in South Florida, it doesn't really matter. Or Vegas, you can grow year round, whether it's indoors or outdoors. You can reduce your food bill. The tower garden does yield considerably more and it grows faster. And you're also able to add more nutrients to your diet. So there's a whole nother, there's the nutritional side to it also. We often eat the things that are available, the things that we like, the things that we know. This is an opportunity for a hobby. It's an opportunity to do something that you've never done before, or maybe you've done it before, but can do it differently. It also spans generations. It's a way for people to do things together. And I don't know about you, but seeing little ones staring at phones and lacking communication, this is a wonderful way to teach children about nutrition, make food fun. So I could literally talk about this for hours on end. It is one of my favorite things to talk about, especially when it involves children. And I'll just share with you just one of those warm stories that just, I don't know, warmed my mama heart, because my daughter's 25 and living on her own in her first, non-college, non-interim, like actual real apartment, real job. And she called home a couple months ago and she had that voice, like that voice. I knew something wasn't right. And she's like, Mom. And I said, yeah, yes. And she's like, I have to grow a tower garden. I think, and I said, the way she said it was very serious. And she's like, I don't know, this arugula that I'm buying, I mean, it is organic, but it's just not good. It tastes like old and it's not soft and it's not spicy and it's not like what we have at home. And so, one of her biggest problems, thankfully, that she wants to grow her own food. And as a mom, I have to tell you, that's a gift. And that came from being raised with growing her own food. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Dee, because I know you started when your daughter was very little as well.
Yeah, I did. Hey,
Oh,
Beth, do
and
you want
there's my baby right there.
to there's some pictures here of your towers. You want to just talk us through like your journey with growing towers and some of these pictures?
So if you know me a little, or you know me a lot, or you don't know me at all, I tend to not be so much of a rule follower. And so if you tell me, and I'm only 5 feet tall, and I was a competitive gymnast, and I say that because I was the kid when my parents, put something up on the counter, I would climb on the counter and go get it. So when I heard like, well, you can't grow this and you can't grow that, in my brain that was like, well, I mean, what's the worst that happens? It doesn't sprout, it doesn't grow. So as you can see in those pictures, that we're both pointing to okra, which is way over my head, which was super fun to grow. And there's a whole story to that I'll save for another day. I've grown pineapple in the tower, probably a waste of real estate and a waste of, but it was a fun, fun project. I love growing edible flowers. I like to make food fun. I like to make it different. And I was actually going to do the Zoom from downstairs tonight so you could see some of the stuff growing that I actually didn't realize I planted. I know that sounds insane, but it's on the back side of the tower, and I grew yellow sugar snap peas. They're the coolest thing, and their flowers are stunning. And I have enough string beans on my towers to make string bean casserole for Thanksgiving. And that may sound silly to you, but let me tell you, I am one excited girl because I saw how much was on there. I looked last night and I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually enough for this. So just wanted to share that with you. And there's so much you can do. And so that's my dining room. I believe that was from last year, actually. And I grow a lot of variety, a lot of different things, all different kinds of peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, peas, celery, all, lots and lots of edible flowers because I think they're fun and pretty. And kind of any edible, new, unique, fun thing you can think of. And then string beans in all different colors, beans and peas in all different colors. So for this year, we will have red, purple, yellow, and green string beans in our string bean casserole, which will be fun. And Swiss chard and magenta plants. And if you scroll in, you'll see. But I just think experimenting with food is fun. And one thing I have noticed through the years, as much as I love plants and as many plants as I eat, I do play a little bit of a game with myself just because you can see the abundance in there. And those are purple magnolia sugar snap peas, which I think are also beautiful. I aim to use as much as I possibly can in every meal. So sometimes I'll have 13 or 14 different vegetables in a meal. And it may not be a lot of any one thing, but we know for human health, we just need a little bit of a lot of different things. So I love that I can just throw like a little bit of chives, a little bit of this, a little bit of that into whatever I'm making. And it's not stuff I would ever buy from the store. Oh, there's the pineapple, and that's my daughter's apartment and her tower. That's that pineapple. That was so much fun. So, it allows you to be a little more creative, and it's not stuff you'd ever do. Like, I would never go into the store and say, can I have a sprig of whatever, right? It's not a thing. But when it's in your dining room, you can. And you can throw little chive blossom, purple pom pom looking flowers on your food, make it look fun and fancy. And so, with that, back to you, Dee.
So you'll notice with Beth's towers, Beth kind of just like, well, let me wing it. Let me just see what happens. And then when I started my tower journey, it was pretty different. And this here is Living Towers. This was where my tower garden journey started. And this isn't my greenhouse, but this was my mother-in-law's. And she was in Central Florida. And she was good friends with the guy who developed the tower. She was friends with his parents. And they got talking and she started growing a few towers and then a few more. And at the time we were in Dubai, she brought one out to us in Dubai. We started growing it out there. And then we came home and she kept telling us all about this project. And then we saw the greenhouse and it was incredible. And it was then that she actually introduced the towers to the Juice Plus company. And like Beth, I had tried and failed to grow in the ground many times. And I had, spent all this money on raised beds and all the soil and all the wood and all of the things. And then I grew nothing but weeds. And then I didn't want to go in there because maybe there's snakes and things in there. I'm in Florida. There's all kinds of creepy crawlies around. So then that was a big waste of money. And we gave up on that idea. And there went my my goal of canning all these tomatoes. And then when Jan got us a tower garden, we actually grew stuff. And me and my husband were former skydiving instructors, and you've all seen that Geico commercial, So Easy a Caveman Can Do It. Well, I always used to say that a tower's so easy a skydiver can do it because If I can grow a tower, anyone can grow a tower. So those are some of my towers there when we lived up in Central Florida. We had 10 acres. We had plenty of space to do raised gardens, but I couldn't. I just could not grow anything in the ground. And we did try. And this was those towers a little bit more grown. And you can see on there that one on the right, it's got some beans and some cucumbers, and there's some squash on the middle one, a bunch of herbs and greens and celery and kale. And then these actually are on the porch here. We're now down in South Florida, down in the Keys. And a lot of people struggle to grow towers outside if they live near the coast because of that salt air. And if you, oh, sorry, they don't struggle to grow towers, they struggle to grow in the soil because that salt air, that salt gets on the soil, it rains, now you've got all that extra salt in the soil, and then things just kind of die. But if you can see just past that barrier there on our porch, there's a canal that goes straight out to open water. So we're just a few feet from salt water here, and you can see the towers are just thriving. And then now I've got some tomatoes in that tower closest to us. The next one is strawberries, just strawberries. And then the others, a variety of greens and herbs, just like the ones before. This was actually back in Central Florida again, and this was my tomato tower. And in that tower on the left, there are only 6 tomato plants. That's it. And you can see all those tomatoes that I harvested. And every week I was harvesting up to 2 pounds of tomatoes. And what was also funny about this was I started these tomatoes in January, which, if you are familiar with the weather in Central Florida, you don't start tomatoes in January because you still have January and February where there's a very good chance that you're going to get a pretty decent frost or even a hard freeze. But the nice thing with the towers is we set this up in January. If we did have a freeze forecast, me and my husband could just move the tower underneath the back porch, underneath the roof there, and then the next day we put it back out in the sun. So we were harvesting tomatoes before anyone else in the area was even thinking about putting them in the ground. There's some more towers of ours. That was actually the same house there, the one on the left. And we lived in a HOA. And in most HOAs, you're not allowed to have in-ground gardens. But there my towers were loud and proud right on the front porch. Never received any kind of notice about those. We did get a letter about a mailbox that they thought we'd moved, but never anything about the towers that were there. So that was really cool too. So let's talk a little bit about the tower. So you get nutrient-loaded foods without loads of work. They grow up to 3 times faster with 30% more yield. And they actually did a study at the University of Mississippi, and they found that some crops, even you got as much as 60% more yield. As Beth said already, because you're growing up instead of out, you're only using 5 to 10% of the space and the water you would use compared to traditional farming. So the Living Towers greenhouse, that was a 2,200 square foot greenhouse that we would have needed a couple of acres to have grown what we grew in that greenhouse. You get fewer pests with a tower too because there's no soil-borne diseases or pests. And then because of that, there's less maintenance because now you've got no weeding, no digging, no tilling, less pests to deal with. So your maintenance each week is generally going to be less time than it's going to take you to drive to and back from the store. And then this is my favorite, and that's of my daughter there. She's about 3 or 4 in that picture. She's 15 now, but so she's grown up around the towers as well and just loves all the produce that we get on them. We used to find her often hiding in the sugar snap pea tower because she was in the greenhouse before she could walk. And or just stealing strawberries was the other thing as well. But the thing that's great about the tower is, as we've said already, there's no experience necessary. It's pretty much a plug and play system. and you have so many guides and support. We've got Facebook groups and lots of resources to help you be successful. And like I said already, if I can grow a tower, anyone can grow a tower. Do you have anything to add there, Beth? Because like me, you had no experience either.
So, it's interesting. So when the towers came out, I everybody in my family, that was their holiday gift that year. My mom, my dad, my stepfather, and my brother and sister-in-law. And very interesting. My mom said to me, "Towers are a reflection of your personality." And I was like, "Hmm, okay." So then I started looking at their towers. And my mom's was perfectly like organized and neat and manicured and like everything perfect. It was gardened and taken care of. Mine, as my dear friend Dee alluded to, is kind of like a hot mess, wing it, hope for the best. And but the neat thing is that we all got lots and lots and lots of food, and we do it differently. For me, it's a source of food. It is fun as I've gotten, I would say, as life has shifted a little bit now that my daughter isn't home and, just at a little bit different stage of life. It is a little bit more of a hobby, not maybe to the extent that it is for my mom, but for all those years, it really was just a source of food. And and I've had I think I mentioned this. I was a gymnast. My daughter was a gymnast, and there was a period of time, a 5-year period of time, where we had a combined 7 orthopedic surgeries from gymnastics injuries. And so there was a large chunk of time where I was non-weight bearing. She was not driving yet. Mine was my hip, hers was her elbow. So it was a lot of swapping back and forth. And having fresh food in the house during that time was everything for us. And it may sound like a little thing or something that maybe you don't think about, but there's so many reasons why tower gardens make a whole lot of sense. And I tend to be, with everything in my life, very evidence based. Like, I need the science and then I'll figure out what I want to do. But I do tend to do things in a much more holistic, functional, integrative type of way. So I love that the Tower Garden actually has real research on the minerals, research on the plastic, research on every single part of it, knowing that what I'm getting is food grade plastic, not leaching into my food, and it's cleaner than clean and super nutrient dense. So like Dee said, if I can grow, anybody can grow a tower garden. Truly, truly, truly.
So, how does a tower garden work? So, as Beth said, it's made from food grade plastic. And you can see there you've got the reservoir with the pump in the bottom. That pumps the water up to the top. And then that water just trickles down over each layer back into the reservoir. So you're recycling the water, and that's why you're only using 5 to 10% of the water you would use compared to traditional gardening. This is a Tower Garden Flex. It holds 20 gallons of water, and in this you can plant 20 plants, and we'll show you and compare the couple of models in a sec. The pump is going to plug into a timer, so you don't have to worry about watering it like you would if you were growing in a traditional garden. Because you add the minerals straight into that reservoir, every time that pump runs, you're delivering nutrient-rich water straight to the roots of the plant. So your plants are growing in a stress-free environment, and which is part of the reason that you get such great yield from your tower. So we have two models, the Flex or the Home. So on the left, we've got the Tower Garden Flex. This is really designed if you're going to grow outside. As I mentioned, it has that 20-gallon reservoir, which is a little bit bigger than the Home, and you can grow 20 plants in there. You can expand it, so you can add extensions, and we'll show you those shortly. But the Tower Garden Flex can be grown indoors or outdoors. And you can see there on the wheels on the bottom too. We'll show you the accessories that you can add in a second. On the right, that's the Tower Garden Home. You can see that reservoir is a little bit smaller, a little bit better suited for growing inside. And it's also got the grow lights on it, which are a necessity if you're growing inside. So if you're only going to grow outside, I would recommend the Flex. If you're only going to grow inside, I would recommend the Home. if you're going to kind of switch between inside and outside depending on the season, I tend to lean towards the flex too, just because of that bigger reservoir and the heat that we can get in most of the country in the summer. So take a look at the home and the flex. So you can see everything that you need comes with either tower. You've got your pump, the timer, the mineral blend. Those minerals are going to last you about 2 to 3 months. And then you can purchase the 1 gallons after that. It's got your pH test kit so you can keep that pH within the range that necessary. But it's not something that you have to stress over. Don't think that you got to be checking that every day because you really don't. And when you get going, your affiliate can help you with that. It also comes with a seed starter kit. You've got your rock wool in there, which is what you start your seeds in. The net pots are what you're going to pop your little seedlings in, and a small selection of seeds to get you started. And you really can grow your way. So many people start out with a Tower Garden Flex, and then they'll add one of those 3 extensions that you can see there. And they're going to add anywhere from 8 extra spots to 32 extra spots for the baby greens extension on the right. You can see there's also a support cage available for either tower to help support those large crops like tomatoes. And then the grow lights as well, which, as I mentioned, are necessary if you're going to be growing inside. So I just got some more pictures to show you here. Strawberries are one of my favorite things to grow in the tower because who doesn't love a fresh, sweet, ripe strawberry? And strawberries are up there pretty much the top of the Dirty Dozen list for as long as I can remember. And the Dirty Dozen, for those who aren't familiar, is the 12 produce items that are found to contain the most amount of pesticides. And strawberries have topped that list for as many years as I can remember. Those on the right, those are my towers when we lived in Central Florida, where we had 10 acres. Behind there, you can just see the edge of a raised bed, and that's cut out of the picture for a reason, because my second attempt at gardening in soil was just as bad as the first, and that got overgrown with weeds, and that was a complete waste of time and money, but my towers just kept going there, and it was just so much easier for me to deal with those 5 towers than it was just one raised bed. Here's just some towers with just different setups. We can see these ones all have the cage on, growing different cucumbers and squash. Next to the pool there, inside that pool screen. These are some of my favorites because for those of you who don't live in Florida, you can get quite cold. And I love the one on the right because you can see the snow on the ground, but they're still growing fresh produce in their house. And variety of lettuce and greens and herbs there, and that's the Tower Garden home. And peppers, and just gonna jump through these pictures, just a bunch of different things showing people what you can grow. The tower on the right there, it's one of our customers. Again, he's just a stone's throw from open water, no issues with growing next to salt water at all. The one on the left, that was one of our friends who grew that, and they actually grew pumpkins there. And they grew like a 45-pound pumpkin in their tower. It sucked up a ton of water. He was filling it every day, but it still was using way less water than you would use if you were growing it in the ground. Just a few more here, just out on people's driveways, out in their back garden areas, on patios. And we have some incredible Black Friday deals. Do you want to share this, Beth?
Well, what I want to share is who we are and what we do. And we are all about inspiring healthy living. That is who we are as a company. That is our core value, our mission statement. That is who we are. And Tower Gardens are a piece and a part of helping people live healthier lives. And in the month of November, we have come together as a community to do that in a much larger scale. So please get back with the person who invited you here tonight because there's a lot more here for you. The Black Friday promotion is incredible. One of the best we've ever had. And we have a few other things added onto that. If you see yourself as maybe wanting to be part of our community, being part of the solution that to the problems the world is facing, we would love to have a conversation with you, because that's really what we're looking for, is to create food security and think about places, you know, towers can go anywhere when you think about cafes and restaurants and those types of places, but then also think education, food pantries, food banks, assisted living, senior centers. I mean, it's as far and wide as you can think, as big as you can dream, as wherever your imagination can take you, that's where Tower Gardens can go. And none of us can do that alone. So while the Black Friday promotion is absolutely incredible, and if you do not own a Tower Garden yet, please consider it now, because what we have right now is the best deal that we will have for the entire year. Dee and I work very closely with corporate and specifically close with Tower Garden on some of these things. And we can tell you this will be the best deal that we will have all year. And couple that with the other things that we're offering this month, it is the ideal time to order your own tower, share this with other people, possibly a gift for someone special. And then we have something really unique that you may not know about. It's relatively new to our company, but we also have spray and grow mushroom kits where you can literally, they come in a little box. I think it's the coolest thing. I mean, it's even easier than growing a tower garden, but they come with there's lion's mane and three different types of oyster mushrooms, and they can sit on your countertop. You spritz them and they grow, and you get 4 to 5, they call them flushes, but harvests of mushrooms from each one. They are very inexpensive, certainly in comparison to the cost of buying organic mushrooms in the store. They're significantly less expensive, and they make a beautiful, really unique gift this time of year. So even if maybe you're not quite ready for a tower garden, or people you're speaking to are not quite ready for that, mushrooms are a great way to start. They're super fun, super simple, whether you're, 3 or 103, they're simple and fun.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. So the question is, are you ready to grow? So get with your affiliate, the person who invited you on here this evening, and they will share everything that Beth hinted to just now. So have a great night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.